The land stretches outward in muted tones of brown and gray, cracked open beneath an unforgiving sun. Dust hangs in the air, unmoving, as if even the wind has grown tired. What was once a living plain now feels paused in time. The heat presses down without urgency, steady and patient, shaping the ground day after day. This is not a sudden catastrophe. It is a slow withdrawal of balance. Across the horizon, the rhythms of life have begun to thin. Birds lift off later than usual. Insects no longer fill the air with constant motion. The silence is not complete, but it is noticeable, an absence where sound once lived. Every movement here now seems deliberate, measured, as though the land itself is conserving energy. Survival has become quieter. Nothing in this environment appears openly hostile, yet everything carries weight. The ground offers little softness. Vegetation bends but does not recover. Waterholes that once reflected the sky now reveal only dry, compacted earth. This is a place that allows life to remain, but only under strict terms. Strength alone is not enough here. Endurance is required. At the edge of this vast, restrained landscape, movement begins to take shape. A slow procession emerges, barely disturbing the dust beneath it. Massive forms advance without urgency. Their presence felt more than seen at first. They move as part of the land, not against it, their pace set by something older than the moment itself. For now, there is no sign of alarm, only motion, only continuity. The land does not react. It does not resist. It simply watches as the figures continue forward, carrying with them the memory of paths once reliable. At this stage, nothing appears out of place, yet beneath the calm surface of the scene, the balance that once guided these movements has already begun to shift. What moves across the plain is not a single presence, but a formation shaped by time. The herd advances with weight and cohesion, each body contributing to a larger rhythm. Their size dominates the landscape, yet their movement remains controlled, deliberate. Nothing here is rushed. Every step reflects an order that has existed long before the ground began to dry. Within the herd, spacing is not accidental. Adults hold the outer line, their mass forming a moving boundary. Younger members remain closer to the center, shielded by bodies that know the terrain better than memory alone can explain. This arrangement is not taught in moments of crisis. It is inherited, reinforced across generations, through repetition and survival. At the front, the pace is set without visible command. Direction emerges naturally, guided by experience rather than force. Routes once taken season after season are recalled without hesitation. These paths were formed when water was predictable, when distances carried certainty. For years, following them meant stability. Today, they are followed because nothing has yet proven them wrong. The herd's presence alters the land as it passes. Shrubs bend and break beneath heavy feet. Dust lifts, then settles. Paths widen where none existed before. In this way, the herd is not merely passing through the environment, it is shaping it. Long after they move on, traces remain, subtle but lasting. Reminders that their role extends beyond survival alone. Despite the visible calm, energy is constantly being managed. Movement slows when heat intensifies. Pauses lengthen near familiar ground. These adjustments are small, nearly invisible, but they signal an awareness of limits. The herd is not reacting to danger yet. It is responding to change quietly, methodically. In seasons past, this balance worked. Water appeared where memory expected it to be. Distances aligned with endurance. The herd's rhythm matched the land's ability to provide. That understanding still governs their motion now. Nothing in their behavior suggests urgency. Nothing yet demands deviation. But the environment no longer responds as it once did. The land remembers less. Water recedes earlier. Familiar signs fail to confirm what experience predicts. Still, the herd continues forward, following rules that have protected them for generations. At this stage, Those rules remain unchallenged, though the conditions that shape them have begun to fade. The movement continues, steady and unified. To an outside observer, it appears unchanged. Yet beneath the surface of this order lies an assumption that the world ahead will behave as it always has. That assumption has not been tested, at least not yet. The first place where the herd slows is familiar ground. The earth here bears the marks of past visits: compressed soil, broken stems, the faint outline of paths pressed into memory over time. Normally, this is where movement eases. Heads lift, bodies relax, water should be close, but the ground offers no reflection. What remains is a shallow depression, hardened by heat. The smell is wrong. Moisture that once lingered beneath the surface has withdrawn completely. The herd does not react immediately. They wait, spreading slightly, testing the space as if time alone might correct the absence. Minutes pass, then longer. Trunks reach down, tracing patterns across the dirt, searching for what memory insists should still be there. The behavior is patient, controlled, almost restrained. This is not confusion yet, it is verification. An attempt to confirm that the land has not changed beyond recognition. Eventually, movement resumes. The herd advances, but not with the same ease. Their pace adjusts subtly, steps shorten, stops occur more frequently. The distance between pauses grows less predictable. What was once a simple transition has become a process of reassessment. As the day progresses, the pattern repeats. Another stopping point. Another familiar marker. And again, the same result. Dry ground. No water. The herd does not break formation. There is no visible sign of alarm, yet the intervals between movement and rest begin to shift, stretching longer each time. The younger members feel the change first. Their movements lag slightly behind the group's center. When the herd pauses, they remain still longer than before, conserving energy that cannot easily be replaced. Adults adjust around them, slowing the overall rhythm without altering direction. Heat amplifies the strain. The sun climbs higher, flattening the air. Dust coats skin and hides detail. Breathing becomes heavier, more deliberate. These conditions are not new to the herd, but the duration is. The land offers fewer opportunities to recover, fewer moments where effort is rewarded. Still, the herd presses on. Their motion suggests trust in continuity. Each step forward is grounded in the belief that the next familiar point will be different, that the pattern will correct itself, that this stretch of absence is temporary. Yet the environment provides no confirmation. Waterholes expected to appear remain empty. The vegetation surrounding them shows signs of longer decline. Roots exposed, leaves brittle, growth stunted beyond what seasonal shifts alone can explain. These are not isolated failures. They are connected. With each missed expectation, the herd's energy is drawn thinner. Rest periods lengthen. Movement becomes more economical, stripped of unnecessary motion. Nothing is wasted. Every action serves preservation rather than progress. The absence of immediate danger keeps panic at bay. There are no sudden threats, no attack, no chaos. What emerges instead is something quieter, a gradual erosion of certainty. The rules that once guided movement still operate, but they are no longer reinforced by the land's response. By the time the sun lowers, the herd has covered more distance than usual without relief. The day ends not with resolution, but with continuation. They stop where the ground allows, not where memory prefers. This adjustment is subtle, but significant. As darkness approaches, the plain cools, offering temporary reprieve. The herd remains intact, pressed closer together now. Their silhouettes blur into one another, unified by necessity rather than comfort. The day has taken more than it has given. Nothing has collapsed, nothing has failed outright, yet something essential has shifted. The environment has broken its silence, not through violence, but through absence. and for the first time, the herd carries forward without confirmation that the path ahead still holds what it once promised. The shift does not announce itself. There is no sudden turn, no visible marker that signals a break from routine. Direction changes gradually, almost imperceptibly, as the herd drifts away from the lines pressed into the ground by years of repetition. The land ahead is quieter, less familiar, carrying fewer signs of past passage. Distance begins to stretch. What once lay within a predictable span now extends beyond immediate reach. The herd continues forward, but the rhythm that once guided them loosens. Movement becomes less uniform, shaped more by endurance than expectation. Each step carries more weight, measured against energy that can no longer be easily restored. The terrain hardens. Loose soil gives way to compacted earth, scattered with stone. Heat radiates upward, trapped near the surface, pressing against bodies already working to regulate themselves. Shade becomes scarce. Pauses occur not by habit, but by necessity. When the herd stops, it is no longer near places remembered for abundance. They halt where the land allows, where the ground is flat enough, where the air offers a momentary break from motion. These stops are shorter, less restorative. The absence of water turns rest into delay rather than recovery. Spacing within the herd begins to widen. The strongest maintain pace at the edges, while those nearer the center fall slightly behind before catching up. The formation holds, but it flexes under strain. Unity remains, though it now requires adjustment rather than instinct. Dust thickens with every step. It clings to skin and dulls the landscape, reducing contrast and depth. Vision narrows. The horizon becomes less informative, offering little guidance beyond distance itself. What lies ahead cannot be read easily. Progress continues without confirmation. Time stretches differently here. Hours pass with fewer reference points. Without waterholes or familiar landmarks, movement loses its sense of progress. The herd advances, but the land does not respond. There is no visible reward for effort, no signal that the path chosen leads toward relief. As the day advances, the strain becomes cumulative. Muscles work longer without release. Breathing deepens, synchronized not by calm, but by effort. Heat does not spike suddenly, it lingers, refusing to recede, pressing endurance to its margins. The younger members slow more frequently now. Their steps shorten, their pauses lengthen. Adults adjust around them, shifting positions, closing gaps where fatigue threatens to fracture movement. Protection remains constant, but it costs more. With each passing hour, the herd does not stop entirely. It cannot afford to. Stillness here offers no advantage. Movement, even strained, holds the possibility, however distant, of change. And so they continue, pressing forward into terrain that offers little guidance. Toward evening, the land flattens further, the sky widens, heat finally loosens its grip, replaced by cooler air that brings relief without solution. The herd slows, not in satisfaction, but in exhaustion. This is not a destination. It is simply the end of what the day will allow. They gather closer now, compressing space between bodies, as if reducing distance might preserve warmth and strength alike. The ground beneath them is unfamiliar, unmarked by memory. There is no indication that this place will offer anything more than temporary stillness. When darkness settles, it does not bring clarity. The route ahead remains unreadable. The herd rests where it must, carrying forward the weight of distance already traveled and the uncertainty of what remains. This deviation has not been dramatic. No boundary was crossed with intention. Yet the consequence is clear. The herd has moved beyond the limits once set by routine. What guided them before no longer applies fully. The journey has entered a space where endurance, rather than memory, dictates what comes next. Water is no longer a certainty. It has become a variable measured, rationed by distance rather than abundance. Each pause is weighed against what remains ahead. Drinking, when it happens, is brief and controlled, never enough to restore what has already been spent. The younger members bear the cost first. Their bodies require more frequent recovery, yet recovery no longer arrives on schedule. Steps shorten, heads lower. When the herd stops, they remain still longer than before, conserving strength that cannot be replaced easily. What was once growth now becomes restraint. Adults respond without urgency, but with precision. Positions shift subtly, closing gaps that open as fatigue sets in. The outer line tightens when movement resumes, reinforcing a boundary that has grown more important with each passing day. Protection here is not dramatic. It is constant. Heat continues to press from above, flattening movement into the ground. Shade offers momentary relief, but no solution. The air holds warmth even after the sun begins to fall, refusing to cool quickly enough to matter. The landscape provides little variation, no signal that conditions will ease ahead. Energy management becomes visible in small adjustments. Movement slows earlier in the day. Rest begins sooner. Each decision reflects a calculation: how far to go, how long to pause, how much strength to preserve for what remains unseen. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is rushed. As the herd advances, they are no longer alone in the open. Presence appears at the margins, faint at first, almost indistinguishable from shadow. Shapes move parallel at a distance, never closing in, never fully retreating. They do not challenge the herd directly. Predators do not rush opportunity here. They observe. They measure weakness, not in isolation, but over time. Their attention follows the slowest movements, the longest pauses, the members that lag before closing ranks again. The threat remains unspoken, but it is understood. The herd adjusts. Formation tightens during movement. Stops become shorter, less exposed. The younger members are drawn closer to the center, shielded by bodies that still carry more reserve. The presence at the edge does not force confrontation, but it shapes behavior all the same. Night brings little relief. Cooling arrives slowly, unevenly, offering rest without restoration. The herd remains close, compressing space as if reducing distance might preserve strength. Sound carries farther in the dark. Stillness becomes a form of vigilance. Morning resumes without reset. Fatigue does not disappear with light. It continues. Layered from the day before, pressing into movement from the first step forward. What was manageable becomes demanding. What was demanding becomes costly. The land offers no correction. Vegetation remains sparse. The ground holds no moisture beneath the surface. Paths ahead remain unmarked, giving no indication of what lies beyond the next stretch of distance. Hope exists, but it is no longer reinforced by evidence. Yet the herd continues, not out of certainty, but necessity. Stillness would bring its own consequences. Movement, however strained, keeps possibility alive. Each step forward is an investment made without guarantee. The pressure here is cumulative, not explosive. It builds without noise, without spectacle. Hunger, thirst, fatigue, and watchful presence converge slowly, shaping the journey not through crisis, but through endurance. Nothing breaks, nothing collapses, but the cost of continuation becomes clear. Survival now depends not on strength alone, but on balance. How long the herd can maintain cohesion while the environment continues to withdraw what it once provided freely. The landscape no longer changes in meaningful ways. Distance unfolds without variation, offering no cues that relief lies ahead. Heat returns earlier each day, settling over the ground before movement has fully resumed. What once felt like endurance now approaches its limits. Water exists only as expectation. The memory of it shapes direction, but the land provides no confirmation. Each step forward draws against reserves already diminished. Thirst does not announce itself loudly. It tightens gradually, narrowing focus, demanding discipline rather than reaction. Movement slows across the entire herd. The difference between the strongest and the weakest narrows, not because the weak recover, but because the strong are being drawn down. Pace becomes uniform through necessity rather than coordination. Everyone advances at the speed the environment allows. Rest no longer restores. When the herd stops, bodies remain heavy, slow to settle, slower still to rise again. Muscles release tension only partially. Breathing remains deep even in stillness. The ground beneath them offers no coolness, no softness, only support enough to remain upright. The younger members now require constant adjustment. Their steps hesitate. Their pauses extend beyond what the herd can afford. Adults compensate, shifting positions again and again, closing space, reinforcing the center. Protection persists, but it demands effort that was once unnecessary. At the edges, attention sharpens. Movement at a distance becomes more frequent. Shadows track progress with patience that mirrors the herd's own endurance. Predators do not test strength here. They wait for imbalance, an error that fatigue might produce. The herd responds without confrontation. Formation tightens further. Movement resumes sooner after each stop, reducing exposure. There is no attempt to outrun what follows. Speed would only accelerate loss. Control becomes the priority. Day after day, the land refuses to change. Vegetation thins to almost nothing. The ground hardens, holding heat long after sunset. Even at night, relief is incomplete. Bodies remain warm, energy continues to drain, and sleep becomes shallow. Morning brings no reset. Fatigue carries forward intact, layered from one day to the next. The effort required to begin moving again increases. What once felt automatic now requires intention. The herd rises more slowly, gathers more tightly, advances with caution rather than confidence. Distance stretches without reward. No scent of water drifts across the plain. No birds gather to signal abundance ahead. The environment offers only silence and continuity. The path remains open, but it leads through sameness rather than promise. At this point, continuation itself becomes the decision. There is no clear alternative. Turning back would require covering ground already stripped of value. Remaining still would invite other consequences. Movement, however costly, remains the only option that preserves possibility. The herd presses on, now guided less by memory than by persistence. The rules that once shaped migration no longer apply cleanly. Experience still matters, but it cannot guarantee outcome. Survival shifts from navigation to endurance. The youngest struggle visibly. Their energy fades faster than it can be replaced. Adults close ranks again, adjusting pace further, allowing distance to accumulate more slowly. Progress becomes minimal, but cohesion holds. Predators remain present but restrained. They sense the narrowing margin but do not force it. The herd's unity discourages direct challenge. For now, balance remains fragile, costly, but intact. The sun reaches its highest point again. Heat peaks without variation. Bodies absorb it with diminishing capacity to release. Every movement draws from reserves nearly spent. The environment has stripped the journey down to its core. Move. Rest briefly. Move again. As evening approaches, the herd slows to a near standstill. The distance covered since morning is modest, insufficient to justify the energy spent, yet stopping entirely would cost more. They advance just enough to maintain rhythm, just enough to avoid surrendering momentum. Night settles, bringing darkness without coolness. The herd clusters tightly, conserving warmth that no longer serves comfort but stability. Sound carries farther, now breathing, shifting weight. The faint movement at the margins. Vigilance replaces rest. At this stage, nothing dramatic occurs. No collapse. No confrontation. The tension lies in restraint, in how close the herd moves to failure without crossing into it. Every adjustment buys time, but time no longer guarantees improvement. The land offers no signal that the limit has passed. The horizon remains distant, unchanged. Water, if it exists ahead, gives no indication of proximity. The journey continues not because success is visible, but because stopping would end all chance of it. This is the threshold. not marked by violence or loss, but by exhaustion sustained without release. The herd operates within a margin so narrow that any imbalance could alter everything. Yet for now, they remain intact. Continuation becomes survival's final expression. Not strength, not speed, not certainty, only persistence measured, restrained, and increasingly costly. The environment does not intervene. It does not correct. It does not warn. It simply allows the herd to continue, testing how long cohesion can be maintained as resources withdraw further with each passing hour. Here, at the edge of endurance, the journey does not resolve. It tightens, and what comes next remains undefined. Movement resumes without urgency. The herd advances slowly, not toward a visible destination, but away from what can no longer sustain them. There is no signal that conditions ahead will improve. There is only continuity step following step, distance accumulating without promise. The land remains unchanged. Heat rises and settles as it has for days. Vegetation offers little variation. The horizon holds no markers of relief. What defines this moment is not progress, but persistence. The journey continues because it must. Within the herd, cohesion holds. Bodies move closer together during rest, then expand slightly as motion resumes. These adjustments are quiet, practiced, and costly. Energy is conserved where possible, spent only where necessary. Survival here is not dramatic. It is procedural. Night returns, bringing darkness without resolution. Cooling arrives unevenly, enough to slow the drain but not enough to reverse it. The herd remains alert, gathered tightly, sharing space as if minimizing distance might preserve stability. Sound carries softly breath, movement, the land settling beneath weight. Morning follows without renewal. Fatigue persists, layered from days before. Yet the herd rises again, assembling itself with precision born of necessity. There is no hesitation, only readiness to continue under the same conditions that defined the day before. This rhythm advance, pause, advance forms a cycle that does not promise completion. It is not a path with a visible end. It is a process sustained for as long as the environment allows. Water, if it lies ahead, remains unseen. Failure, if it approaches, does so gradually. The environment offers no verdict. It neither rewards nor punishes. It simply maintains its state, indifferent to outcome. Survival here is not negotiated. It is tested continuously, without interruption. In this space, the herd becomes part of a larger pattern. Drought does not announce itself with collapse. It reshapes behavior slowly, narrowing options, stretching endurance across days that offer little variation. What persists is not dominance, but balance maintained under pressure. There is no final moment to mark success or loss. The journey does not conclude within a single frame. It extends beyond observation, continuing into distance and time. What remains visible is only the present movement sustained, cohesion intact, uncertainty unresolved. The land holds its silence. The herd moves on. Between them, no agreement exists, only a shared condition that defines survival without guarantee. Here, the story does not end. It remains open, carried forward by motion that refuses to stop, shaped by an environment that offers no assurance beyond the next step.